Battleline podcast. My name is Ian Scotto.
I am Tonto Axtastic today, and you'll know why. Are we recording this before or after? You won't know why. Tonto Axtastic. That's what I am today on my ID. Can you read that, Ian? Right there.
Tonto Axtastic.
There you go. I like
it.
it.
Squadcast. Because we record on Squadcast. That's why, as you guys will hear, I mean, shout out to them, even though they're not a sponsor or anything. The audio quality is awesome with them. I think.
Good job.
I've been really happy with them. So yeah, for the new listeners, we speak to members of the special operations community and sometimes military family members, Gold Star family members like Cheryl Doltz. As we do in this episode, if you got a chance to check out War Heroes on Newsmax, this will take you a little bit behind the scenes of that, and also give you some stories that you never heard before, actually, on War Heroes.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed that, you're really going to enjoy this episode. We get deep into it, but we also have some laughs, and I think you'll really love it. So before we get into our segment with Cheryl Doltz, as always, Ned keeps us going. I love Ned, and the thing that makes them such a great supplement, the full spectrum hemp in particular, is there's so many supplements on the market where you don't know what it's doing for you. It's hard to tell if it's giving you that edge. I can tell you, man, whenever I take Ned's full spectrum hemp and I take the smaller dosage, I have not just dreams. I have like full motion picture dreams. So when people say I don't have dreams anymore, and you want to have some vivid dreams and get that great night's sleep and relieve some stress, Ned, they're awesome.
The full spectrum hemp I've been on it now, taking it for over a year, and you get acclimated to it. You take the dosage that they recommend, but you'll find yourself leveling out. My wife and even people around you will see that your demeanor has changed. You'll become more relaxed. You'll become more aware of what's going on around you. You less stress, like Ian's talking about. Sleep improves. But there's also the benefits of other effects because it's an anti-inflammatory. Me having my ulcerative colitis, it's helped with that. And just taking it in lieu of taking over-the-counter Tylenol. If I have something sore, it works. It does. It's an anti-inflammatory. So you're reaping a bunch of benefits, not just the stress relief, which is tremendous, but and that makes your life better. So it is. It's a lifestyle choice, really, to take CBD and to take Ned. And I say Neds. I always have said Ned. Sorry, guys. Let's always say Ned. But to take Ned because it has made my life better. It has. And granted, it's my choice as well, which has done that. But relieving the stress, getting better sleep, having less aches and pains. Who doesn't want to have that in their life? And you're going to feel better every day. And it's really made a huge difference, guys. So I highly recommend it. I highly recommend Ned, and I highly recommend the natural CBD without the taste, as it just feels good after I take it. My wife, like I said, she notices the difference when I'm not on it, when I'm on it. If, like I said, vacations, I go on trips, and sometimes I forget to take it with me. And she can tell, hey, man, get back home and remember to bring that in your carry-on next time you go through. And it's made a huge amount of difference in my life. And I don't know, I think I even feel and look better because of the ability to get better workouts and more sleep. And again, the less aches and pains. And my ulcerative colitis doesn't flare up. So tremendous.
You're a beautiful man. They have the pill form too for those who aren't into the taste, but I love the liquid form. That's what I'm sticking with. So beyond that, it's a rich source of antioxidants. And then in even more serious cases, it's been used for serious conditions such as epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and more. They also have their, of course, body butter, which we always talk about.
Oh,
and
awesome.
their
Awesome stuff.
Yeah. And their natural cycles line for those who are experiencing period pain, that type of stuff for the female listeners. So, check them out. If you want to check out Ned and try their CBD or any great products for yourself, we have a special offer for the podcast audience. Go to helloned.com/battleline or enter Battleline at checkout for 15% off your first one-time order or 20% off your first subscription order plus free shipping. I have some listeners who've been hitting me up. They've become subscribers. They love it. So yeah, if you want to start off with that subscription or just one time, you could use that promo code. And that's HELLONED.com/Battleline to get 15% off your first one-time order or 20% off your first subscription order, plus free shipping. Thank you, Ned. All right, let's hit it.
From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Twitch is on. Motherfucker, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline podcast.
The switch is on, Battleline podcast, and on with us a very special guest, Cheryl Doltz. And many of you got to watch the pilot episode of War Heroes on Newsmax. And Cheryl Doltz, of course, for those who have seen it, know that she is the Gold Star mother of Ryan Doltz, who was an Army National Guard member, killed in action by an IED in Baghdad in Iraq on June 4th of 2004 at the age of 26. And many of you I know really loved that War Heroes. I want to say documentary. I know it's a show, but it was really, there's a lot of work that went into it. But documentary, hosted, of course, by Chris and directed by Jack Thomas Smith, along with Mandy Del Rio. So, yeah, with that, it's an honor to finally have you on. We've been talking about this a while.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a chance to talk about Ryan. I enjoy it.
And do you know? Hey, I haven't heard from Jack. How did it do? Did you get any word on how it did with Newsmax? Or
apparently, it did quite well. That he was very busy just before that because on 9/11, their documentary that they did, 9/11, the day that shook the world, also premiered.
Okay.
And so he's been busy with both, but he said that the people there were very happy with War Heroes. So hopefully they will be able to do the whole series.
Yeah, it'd be great. That was how many years? I told Ian 3 years ago. Yeah, it was it seems like it is. To me, it seems like a long time ago.
It was.
It does. I know, but we had a good time. And we had cookies. I never get into that stories. We had tons of cookies. The granddaughters were there. They were cooking up. One of them. Which one is the one that wouldn't let me eat any though? Said I couldn't have any.
The little one. She's not in 5th grade. She was only 3 then.
Oh, and now she's big. Is she first grade? She's first grade.
First grade and as fresh as ever.
Is she going to school, or do they still have?
No,
okay, good.
In fact, she was in school every day last year, full time, because she went to kindergarten at Picatinny Arsenal, and they had school every day.
That's good. No, same as my kids. Yeah.
Was in and out. But they're both back in school, and Addie's in 6th grade now, so she's middle school.
Wow.
So, very grown up.
They did. They were active, bro. They were bosses of the house. I remember when
Addie loved it. She was really taken by acting.
I don't know if we were acting. The only part I may have acted is at the beginning when we were the driving scene where I had to be solemn, and I was like, Jack, I'm not. This seems I'm really not solemn and drive and say how hard this is. I think we should pump it up a little bit. He's like, no. This is what I want. Okay, I'll try to. I'll try. And I look at it and I'm like, man, I didn't even come off.
Entrance when you were coming in the door. Remember, we tried that several times and that didn't make it. That was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, that's what it. Just do something natural, not do it over and yeah. We had to walk up. I had to walk up to the door, and this is where I started to learn about a lot of this stuff. Where just do it over and over again, and then half the time it doesn't even end up in the show. But but that was still fun though. Driving up to the and having you act like you actually wanted to see me after the 100th time of doing it.
Well, there's a little clip that's maybe 5-10 seconds that it took them 2 hours to film. Ann and I were in the car and we rode up and down one of the streets in town. First, we had drones following us, a drone in front of us, then behind us. Then we had the producer, Jack, and one of the cameramen in the car. And then they switched places. And we were not to laugh. We were not to talk. We were to look serious for 2 hours. And I was waiting for the police to come because neighbors didn't call and say, what's going on here?
That's what I thought was going to happen with us driving. It's like, Jack, we're driving down the same road over and over and over again. Somebody's going to think we got a dime bag in the car and we're trying to pick up somebody on the side of the road. Like, oh, no, that'll be fine. Like, whatever. As long as you explain it, that there's a camera in the back and there's 3 guys in here driving up the same road over and over again. Whatever.
At the end, when they filmed at Arlington for Reeves Across America, you can hear the rain, but you cannot imagine how hard it was raining. It was pouring, and we were there. They mic'd us up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We went to breakfast, and all this is being recorded because after a while you forget you have a microphone on.
Yeah.
And it was my daughter, my son, my granddaughter, and myself, Addie. And we had breakfast, and then we had to be at Arlington at the Pentagon at 7 in the morning. And then the Gold Star families were brought in together to the parking lot. And we were there, and Ann and Addie were singing something from Hamilton. Doug Paul, one of our trustees who was with us, was singing something from A Star Is Born. And all this is on the recording. They forget, we're all mic'd up.
Yeah.
We got in at 7 o'clock. We parked. We walked over to Section 60. 7 in the morning. Now we've got our umbrellas. It's pouring down rain. Jack and the others that were filming did not get there until 11. Because it took them that long to get through security.
Wow.
Gold Star families don't have to go through security, but anyone else coming to help does. And by the time they got there, we were drowned rats.
Yeah.
Even our umbrellas weren't working anymore. Our clothes were soaked. We were soaked right to the skin. And so then they had us walk back and forth up and down the one aisle. And now we start to draw a crowd, which is what we didn't want to do.
Yeah, because the cameras.
Keep it as, and they were using very small cameras, so it wasn't real obtrusive. And it's like we got back in the car. We got back to the hotel. There was not a dry piece of clothing on any of us. Thank goodness the hotel had dryers we could put our shoes into because everything was soaked.
I missed that day of filming. Yep, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, you were lucky.
I got the sunny day.
And it's funny because other times we've gone, it's been 70 degrees and absolutely gorgeous. We've gone when it was snowing or sleeting, but never the pouring rain like it was that day. Ryan was getting even with us.
There was. He's like, stop the. Yeah, rain. I can handle anything. Snow. After a while, if it's wet snow, but when you're wet, that's when you're most. I hate being wet. I hated when I was serving. That was the worst thing in the world. I can always drink water. I can bundle up for snow, but you can't. You can't stop. And if the more waterproof gear you put on, the more you sweat underneath. So now you're wet anyway. And then if the wind picks up, that's miserable. Rain makes things just amplifies the misery. It amplifies the suck factor to times 100. So, but like I said, I didn't have to be there, so I'm okay with that. I can look at it and laugh and smile and be like, man, yeah, sucks to be you, man. Sucks to be you, man, Mom Adults. Sucks to be
last year, because of the pandemic, they did it differently. They had a whole week when Gold Star families could go and pick up however many wreaths you needed, because Ryan has 2 cousins that are buried at Arlington. And so we got the wreaths for all of them and put them out. But this year, the whole family is planning on going December 18th. And hopefully it'll be nice weather, because at 3:00 in the afternoon, we've been chosen to place a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier.
How did that happen? I mean, how did you get? Do you put a draw? Did they do a drawing or something?
Apply for it.
Oh wow!
I had applied several times for the anniversary of his death.
Sure.
But those are always booked way up ahead of time because school trips in June, that sort of thing. But there are no school trips in December.
Yeah.
And so we are there from 7:00 in the morning till about 10 or 11. And at that point, 250,000 wreaths have been put out.
Wow.
And there's so many people who come and help. And so then we'll have time to go back to the hotel and get ready. So it'll be my daughter, my son Greg, my daughter Anne, my granddaughter Addison, the older one, and Doug Paw, who is one of the trustees of our foundation. He was one of those who escorted you around when you were here in New Jersey.
He was nice, very nice guy.
Oh, he is. Right now, he's down in Louisiana with the Red Cross. He's been there for a month. He's a retired police officer who works with the Red Cross, and wherever they send him to deal with hurricanes, fires, whatever, he's going. But he said he will be there in December to do that. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's quite an honor.
Yeah, that'll be a great honor. You know what I wanted to ask you? I mean, just getting into everything in terms of the actual, and like I said, I keep thinking documentary more than show, because I really do feel like it was a documentary. Even hopefully there are more, but I even think just that episode stands alone as a documentary on Ryan and a documentary on your family. When you were first approached about the idea, how did you feel about it? Like, did you think it was going to be too intrusive, or were you saying to yourself, I want to honor my son and let as many people in the country know about this great story? I'm just wondering your feelings.
Well, when I first received an email from Mandy, I kind of was very skeptical about it, because Gold Star families are approached for many things, and some of them are fake. You have to be very careful who you deal with. And so when I wrote back, we arranged to meet at a local diner, and I brought my son with me. Because my daughter normally is the one, and usually goes with me to things, but she was busy, so I took Greg. I figured nobody's messing with Greg. He's 6'6". He looks very intimidating.
Nobody's messing with Annie. She's tough as nobody's going to mess with her either. She'll let somebody know. I could just tell her. She'll let somebody know if she has a problem with them.
Yep. Yeah, and she has a hard time doing that. But she keeps me in line. But Greg went with me, and we met Mandy and Jack. And as soon as we met them, we realized they were very sincere in what they wanted to do. As far as being intrusive, like I said, the more I can talk about Ryan, the more his name, his memory are kept alive. I'm happy that it was the same way after he died. So many people don't want the press around. We invited them in because we wanted them to tell his story, but we wanted them to tell his story from our viewpoint, not from what they might find out on the internet or something like that. We wanted them to hear what we had to say. And I truly think if you make the press your friends, you're better off. You don't want to aggravate them, because then, it makes it hard for you. And we were very fortunate. Mandy and Jack did a wonderful job, but I have to tell you, at the meeting, they were so excited because they said, we have Chris Peranto to be the host. I had no idea you were.
He's like, who? That's what she's like, who?
And I did my same thing I do when I meet someone that I'd had in school years ago or a parent.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's wonderful. Get home and see who you were. So then I put 13 hours because I remembered immediately as soon as I saw your name. I remembered the movie. I found it on TV on demand. I watched it, but I had a real hard time watching it because the young man who played your part had been a recurring actor on Law and Order SVU, which is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, but he's a serial rapist.
Yes.
Probably.
You, all I saw was this serial rapist. And by the third time I watched the movie, then I didn't think of him as having been on SVU and holding Sergeant Benson hostage.
Yeah, I remember.
Started thinking of him as a different person. And he was you to a T.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. It's remarkable but his personality off screen is similar. He's just, our physical statures are completely different. He's a monster. He's huge.
Yes.
But it is, he's just a goof. A personality, and that's came off of, but I saw those SVU units, those as well, because that's when they told me he was playing me. I was like, I thought of him, and then I thought of he played that sexual deviant security guard in Orange Is the New Black. I used to watch that, and honestly, this is what I said when that happened. I remember I told Richard Abate, who's with 3 Arts, who's doing they were the ones that produced the movie. I go, man, you've got a sexual deviant, porn stash rapist guy playing me in the movie, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect right there. That's it. Yeah.
Well, then after that, I was excited to meet you because I remembered when all of that happened and how I felt about it, and I couldn't wait to meet you. And I was excited that you were able to be the host of the show, and you did not disappoint. You did a wonderful job.
Yeah, your family, it made it easy, and went down to the VFW, and they got his old teammates. I just really, that's the easiest thing to do is, as far as when you're doing TV, is because you're just hosting, you're just here asking questions. It's you guys that actually are the show. I'm just kind of there, kind of going, all right, smile. Do I smile now? Do I accept? What do I do? But Jack, that's why I asked Jack. I was like, Jack, there's a couple things in there where you're getting my mannerisms wrong. That's not what I was doing when she was talking to me. And we would change it up. I was like, you say something that, talk about Ryan, and it really is something that really heartfelt, and he'd pan over and I would be smiling. Like, Jack, people are going to hate my guts because they're thinking I'm smiling while she's talking about this heartfelt. And that's not what I was doing. I don't remember doing that. But they edited great, and you were awesome. And I want to kind of get in it because we're jumping to it. Before we get to that, can you tell us? Because I think a lot of people out there may not know Ryan's story that we have listening out there. Can you, if you don't mind, get into that a little bit? And there's some that do, but. The beginning, and we don't, maybe even the National Guard, and just his perseverance to go. That's what impressed me, is that, he didn't have to go, and he was injured. That was like, holy crap, this guy, and he still went. And people don't know that. They don't know that he was.
Well, he was persistent from the day he was born, because he was born 2 months early. And in 1978, a preemie, it was very questionable whether or not they would survive. And they were just starting a neonatal unit at St. Barnabas Hospital where he was born. I asked the doctors what chance he would have of surviving when I was in labor, and they told me maybe 30% at most.
Wow.
Because he probably weighed between 1.5 to 3 pounds. He weighed 5.25 pounds. And they told me he would be in the NICU at least 2 months. He was there 11 days, and they sent him home. Wow. That he was determined even then. He was a handful, is the best way to put it. He, when he was little, had a problem with his one foot turning in, so he had to wear He used to put a bar, special shoes with a bar, and it turned his foot out so that he had to keep it on 23 hours a day. He learned to walk. He learned to go up and down stairs with this bar. He could swing it out of the crib. He got enough momentum that if he swung it up, he went right over and out. He was all over the place. But a year later, it was corrected. He didn't have that problem again. He played football and baseball in high school. Well, actually, he started football when he was in about third grade, I think. He had tried soccer. That wasn't his thing. But football, he loved football. And played baseball for a while in high school. He was 6'6", so he could have played basketball, but that he wasn't interested. He wanted something where he actually got to hit people. That was fun. As a kid, he and his brother played war with all the kids in the neighborhood, and all he ever wanted to be was a soldier. When he was a junior in high school, he had the opportunity to go to football camp at Auburn University. And I can't remember the name of the coach right offhand, but Terry Bowden. That's who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He had a picture of Ryan standing next to him, and Ryan's about 2 feet taller than he is. They teased him at the camp, and my daughter was the one who took him down because I wasn't able to get off from school. She called me, she goes, "He's the smallest person here." And he was 6'6" and weighed about 250. She said, "There are kids coming in who are freshmen in high school who weigh 350 pounds.
Jeez.
And the coaches even said to him, "Are you sure you shouldn't be at kickers camp? You're awfully small," because he played defense. He was a nose guard.
Wow.
And so he decided to try. He went over to practice with the offense and see if that would be better. And there was one coach he was so impressed with. He could spit tobacco out of either side of his mouth. And after they were doing some drills, he made a comment to Ryan. And I'm not going to give you the whole comment because you'd have to delete it. He said, "Son, you're slower than steam off cow." And he remembered that.
And by the way, you can say whatever you want here. We don't have to cut anything out.
He said, "Slower and steam off cow shit."
There you go. This is at Newsmax. We can say whatever.
Ryan thought that was cool. And he knew it. He was not a good runner, but he could, if he was given an objective, he could take out whoever that person was. And so he wanted to go to Auburn. He would have to be a walk-on, because they told them, "We don't recruit in the North. You don't play real football."
Yeah,
and we don't.
Yeah, yep.
Nothing like, they have stadiums for the high school.
Yeah.
Even when I was a kid in the 60s, we had a huge stadium with lights at my high school, but it's different up here. And so he would have to be a walk-on. Well, then he went to a college fair and met a young man from VMI. And he said, "I really want to check it out." And I'm like, "Oh, Ryan, I don't think so. You're not real good at following rules and regulations and that sort of thing. I don't know that VMI would, and you're going to have to take a foreign language." And he was horrible at foreign languages. And so the catalog came and I pitched it. And
that's dirty.
I said, he had to have 2 years of a foreign language. I said, "You will never pass. Never. Because you can't get extra help like you could in high school just to barely get through 1 year of Spanish." So because he's like me, he just doesn't hear the sounds. We went to France and my daughter made fun of the few words I could say. She told me to keep my mouth shut because it was going to get me in trouble. But anyway, back to Ryan. He decided he wanted to go to this dinner they were having for prospective cadets. And the Alumni Association was holding it. So we went, and they seated him with the football coach from VMI, and who was a very nice gentleman. It was very interesting. He explained to him how we have peanut butter on the tables. That is a condiment for you. You're expected to eat at least half a jar a day because you need to bulk up a little bit. 250 wasn't enough. and they had 2 cadets there. And so he signed up for what they call, it's a weekend when they can come and spend the weekend in the barracks with the cadets. And he went down, and it was in the middle of the winter. It was horrible weather, December. My daughter drove him down because, again, it was a Friday. I could not take off from school. And she said, "Mom, the place looks like a prison." And it does. And in fact, the barracks were used in a film years ago as a prison. It was a Civil War film, and it was the prison. He loved every minute of it. I don't know who they put him with, but the cadets that he was with showed him all how you bend the rules, you don't break them. It's
Sure. Yeah.
much fun it can be.
Yeah.
And he came home, and that was the only place he wanted to go. That was it. That's where he wanted to go. And he was accepted there. He was also accepted at the Citadel. And I was kind of glad he did not go there, because the Citadel, that was the first year they had women there. And there was so much media
Yeah, I remember that.
of that.
I remember that.
Really wasn't a good situation. And they only brought in one woman. Ryan's second class year was when women came to VMI, but they brought in a number of women. Plus, they brought in women officers from other military academies, from Virginia Tech, from Texas A&M, so that the women cadets who were rats did not feel isolated. There were officers they could go to talk to. And he didn't like it. He liked the old war that was all male, but he got used to it. And he was class of 2000, but he didn't graduate till 2002. He started out as a biology major, and after one semester decided to switch to physics, because his mentor, Joe Claypatch, who was the drum major of the band, was a physics major, and he wanted to be just like Joe. So that was 2.5 years of I will take everything twice, because physics was not his thing. And finally, Joe sat him down and said, "Look, do you want to graduate or do you want to study physics?" He said, "Well, I want to graduate." He said, "Well, then switch to either business or history, and then you'll graduate." So he switched to history, and with a minor in business, and that's the minor in business is what helped him graduate. He should have been a business major all along, because all of those macroeconomics and microeconomics, he thought they were easy. Statistics, there's nothing to it. Whether other people are having a horrible time, he thought that was a breeze.
I think that's one of the interesting things about when you graduate high school, is that at high school it's like so regimented, and then in college and in higher education, you kind of thrive in these areas that you didn't learn about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he played football for about a month, and then he got mono, because he had sweat parties, they call them, where they took a certain number of cadets into a room with a light, and that's about it. And they worked them out for 20 minutes. And when they got hot, they gave them a cup of water and passed it around to all of them. And they all came down with mono. And the way it was there, you still had to go to class and you still had to do your work.
Wow.
You went to the post hospital. That's where you slept. But you still had to do your work. There was no taking a month off to get over it. But that meant there was no football.
And there was also no remote learning then. Like, you couldn't hop on this thing like we are now, so.
You didn't have a computer. And in fact, it was, I don't think they had the internet even when he graduated. They had computers, but I'm not sure they were totally hooked up with the internet. That he got better and then discovered rugby and liked it because it was football without pads. And he was the one that they would lift up in the air by his pants. It's like, I watched one game at West Point, and I had never seen a rugby game. I knew nothing about rugby, and I saw them putting tape around his head. And I couldn't figure out why. And one of the mothers said, "That's so nobody pulls his ears off." I was like, "Oh, okay." Because apparently they grab whatever they can get. And he loved it. Just absolutely loved it.
When did he get? Because didn't he play the tuba at VMI as well? Didn't he get into that as well?
He was in the high school band. He played tuba, and played in the regimental band at VMI. And his second class year, he spent a lot of time conducting the pep band at basketball games because the drum major would say, "Oh, I've got something I have to do. Ryan, would you take over and conduct the band?" And they get their rings in their second class year. And that he would get their attention by banging his ring on the railing. And it would make a lot of noise. And that's how, and he loved to do that. He was always banging that ring on something. But he just loved VMI, everything about it. At the end of his second class year, though, he had not met the 24-hour rule. You must complete 24 credits within a year because he had to go to basic training for the National Guard. He had joined the National Guard at the end of his third class year, his sophomore year, and he had 1 year till he had to go through basic, and he hadn't done it yet, so he had to do it that summer. Well, that meant that he couldn't come back to VMI at the end of the summer. So for 1 year, he went to Fairleigh Dickinson University here in New Jersey and did so well. He was on the dean's list here, where at VMI he was just barely getting by. But he was on the dean's list, and they wanted him to be in their honors program. And he said, "Thank you, but I want to go back to VMI and get that big diploma," because it's actually a sheepskin. It's huge.
I didn't know that. Wow.
You can get the regular one, or we figured after it took him 6 years to finally get it, he was getting the big one. Yeah. That he, I worked with his advisor, because at that point he had switched to history. And I had worked with Colonel Davis to set up the classes that he should take here. And then he went back and did his last year at VMI and actually graduated in 2002. So he was always considered a member of the class of 2000. Because whichever class you matriculate with, that's the class you are always a member of, no matter when you graduate. But he was, he loved VMI. He loved being in the National Guard down there. And as soon as he graduated, he was deployed as part of Operation Noble Eagle in Maryland. We don't realize, but we have chemical weapons here. And we are testing chemical weapons and devising things all the time. And his unit was assigned to guard our chemical weapons, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few places where you are authorized to shoot anyone who comes near the fence. He said, however, in that year, all he saw was a couple of rabbits that came near the fence. But in the middle of the night, you'd be in the guard tower, and a convoy would come up, and they would get out of their cars, and you would be pointing your guns at them, and they would point their guns at you. And then they would bring something in, go back to a building, and be there a little while, and then leave again. He said, I didn't want to know what they had in those trucks. But when he finished, he was going through OCS while he was doing that. And right before the physical test, playing some game or something or other, hurt his leg and wasn't able to run, so he couldn't do the test. Transferred back up here because when the deployment was over, there were no jobs in Virginia. His unit was from Martinsville. There was nothing available. Came back up here and went to work for a company called Moore Trench American. They're the company that built the slurry wall for the World Trade Center. And they hired him first just as a part-time to fill in on something, but then he did such a good job, they made it a permanent job, and he was a cost engineer. It was also his job to go with the engineers, who sometimes are not that big. They're engineers, and he was almost like a bodyguard, because when they had to go and deal with the unions in New York for different jobs, his job was just to stand there and look scary. And he could do that quite well. My students used to refer to Ryan and Greg as the funny one and the scary one, because when Greg came in, Greg would be joking and fooling around, and Ryan would come in very seriously, asking usually for money or something. And they both had chaperoned class trips, and all the girls wanted to be on Greg's group. And Ryan would ask for the worst behaved, and he would have them marching in a row. We'd be in New York City, and they would be in a line, one right behind the other, because they were all a little afraid of him. That's what he said, line up, one behind the other. They did it.
Greg mentioned something to me, and I think you did as well. Maybe Ann did as well. But you said Greg had all the girls around him, but Ryan was the actual movie star, literally. And if people want to see, I think they could even YouTube that commercial if they want to. Tell us a little bit about, because I thought that story was honestly was pretty not hilarious in a bad way. It was fun because of the competition. Yeah.
Well, one of those days, he went to summer school every summer, and Norelco came to VMI. They had come out with a new razor that had a gel in the razor that you put, like a pack that you put in. And so you didn't need shaving cream. It was all in one. It was perfect for someone in the military who had to shave quite often, anyone like that. And they came on campus and said, we're going to give you this razor to try for a few weeks, and we'll pay you $75. Well, Ryan's like, I'm in. And at the end of the few weeks, they did focus groups, and they videoed them. And Ryan called me and he said, I'm going to get to be in the commercial, and they're going to pay me $200. Now, this is great. And it's during summer school and so forth. A couple of days later, he calls me again. He said, you're never going to believe this. He said, but I'm going to be one of the 4 featured cadets in the commercial, and they're paying me $2,000.
Big money. College money. That's college money right there.
And they were and the barracks had no air conditioning. It's August. They were going to put the 4 cadets in a hotel. They each had their own hotel room. And he was so excited. The first day, there was a knock on the door in the morning, and the person who was coming to pick him up to take him to the post said, I didn't know what you'd want for breakfast, so I went to McDonald's and I got one of everything. Of course, he ate it all. He wasn't going to let anything go to waste. And he thought this was spectacular. Because he had a speaking part, Norelco paid for him to be in the Screen Actors Guild.
So he's just, I remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Screen Actors Guild.
He had a pension. He had all, he was never in anything after that. But, and he just loved every minute of it. And he's in the final scene. He's babyface. He's going over an obstacle course, and the officer pinches his cheek and says, move it, babyface. So Ryan became known as Babyface, and his unit was in Martinsville, Virginia. There's a NASCAR track there, and they always seemed to have their drills when there was a race going on, and so they would try to get to the race. There was also a Hooters, and all of the waitresses in Hooters knew his name. And when he would walk in, it was, hey, Babyface. Plus, there are several they were women's colleges. Now, some of them have become co-ed, but Mary Baldwin and Hollins, he knew girls from all of those schools. And he left his phone with us. So after we were notified that he had died, we were trying to contact people. And there was just rows girl's name after girl's name in his phone. And luckily, they had their own little network because as soon as one found out, they contacted everybody else. So we didn't have to do that. But we laughed. We said, well, at the funeral, do we have to set aside one row for Hollins, one row for Mary Baldwin, and one row for Hooters?
All right. Hope you guys are really enjoying this interview with Cheryl Doltz. I really enjoyed speaking with her for, first time at length for me. For you, this was kind of revisiting Cheryl and getting to hear all about Ryan Doltz and getting some behind the scenes info of what went into that War Heroes special. A lot of stuff that I didn't see on there and that you guys experienced that you could share with us.
Sure.
Because it's, as you hear from the interview, it was a highly produced show, and you don't hear what goes into all those takes, all the hours upon hours that go into those takes.
Walking up and saying, it was awkward about the 100th time walking up and saying hi, like where she had to greet me. It was that it was almost embarrassing. It's like, how are we going to fake this anymore? Because we just got tired of saying hi to each other over and over and over again. And honestly, I think it's the first take they actually used too. It was like the very first one we did, but
because it's gonna be the natural one. You can't really fake. Yeah,
exactly. You can't. Yeah, so I never understand. I've been in a few commercials, done the War Heroes, done a few things on TV that were recorded, and it's always the first take, because everything else you try to act like how they want you to act, but they want you to be natural, which I never understood. Be natural, but we need you to do this. Well, then just let me be natural. But it worked out, and it was a tremendous episode, and she was a trooper, and she made it easy.
Yeah. So hope you guys are enjoying this, and the people who keep us going are great sponsors, one of which, Fort Scott Munitions, is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standards of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states. Just click on the dealer locator on the website. Here's the thing, though. Actually, as I was recording this, I got an email from Fort Scott Munitions, not, like a personal email, but a mailing list email. And we're recording this in advance. So by the time you hear this, I have a feeling this is going to be long gone. But I got this email that says the 9mm ammo is available in bulk right now at a discounted price for a box of 500. Like I said, though, by the time people hear this, it'll probably be out. But that's why I would say subscribe to their mailing list, because then you'll get alerts if they have these great sales. Otherwise, you do have to get it in person at your local store, because they're out of everything on the website. But it looks like every now and again, they'll have these little flash sales for if you're buying in bulk. And in this day and age, with everything being scarce, you probably do want to buy in bulk.
And I, speaking with Ryan Kraft, who runs and owns Fort Scott, he was saying they had got some parts, the pieces they needed to get their 9mm back up and running. So guys, if you need 9mm, I know 9mm, I know a lot of you do, but that is the preferred everyday carry for you concealed carry users. Guys, it's available. So check them out. I'm hoping there's stuff left. Like Leon said, when you get in there and look, it may all be gone, but get on their mailing lists, because they will put that out, and they are getting pieces and parts for different calibers now. It's become more readily available, but you see people buying it up in hordes because you don't know if there's going to be a shortage again of ammo. So get on it, get on their mailing list, and then when it pops, you know it's there, and you go pick it up. But I know the 9mm is available right now. Ryan said they got pieces, and they were starting to manufacture it again. So hopefully that means a lot. I don't know the numbers, but check them out, go buy it, and then you'll have your 9mm.
Yeah. Exactly. And for those who, don't see those sales, like I said, sign up on the website, but otherwise the dealer locator, you're going to find a place right by you. Even here on Long Island, there's places right by me. So in other states, you're going to find a place by you. So use the exclusive promo code Battleline if you want 15% off any of their merch. They do great t-shirts, great hats, just really badass stuff. So FortScottMunitions.com, promo code Battleline for 15% off. That's only available to our listeners. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. And of course, we just talked about ammo. We got to talk about night vision. If you listen to the last episode with Phil Otto, you really get a more in-depth view of what they're doing with night vision. They are the leaders in that space. They're the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high-quality night vision capabilities than anyone. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and outdoor enthusiasts rely on Photonis defense systems to make their adventures safer and more successful. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Once again, if you check out that episode, you'll hear Phil is former CIA, Marine, as well as private contracting. So he really knows this space well, and that's why he's on board with them. They're now offering state-of-the-art night vision systems from the PD Pro B 16mm binocular and the PD Pro M 16mm binocular to the PD Pro Q panoramic night vision system. Customers from all over are excited about these new, smaller, lighter NVGs. You've got to see these things to really experience how much smaller and lighter they are than anything you've used previously. And you've been posting some things on your own real Chris Peranto Instagram of you out and about using these.
Actually, riding a scooter with one of them. With my PVS 15s, goofing around with them, but also doing some serious posts with them. Going and do some just some dry run room clearing with me and Phil. Actually, that was Phil. That was one of my posts that was behind me. Yep. We were doing it, clearing the corner. Just putting them through what I can at least put them through, and then having fun with them and see the weights and the balance. And really, believe me, if you want to see how they're well balanced, go get on one of those electric scooters with them on and have some body armor on. And the old ones are the ones that are out there right now, the old night vision or their competitors' night vision. You got a piece of metal on the top of your head, and if it's heavy, you're going to be off. Just kilter. You're top heavy. And I'm telling you what, those things, I didn't even feel like I was wearing them. They were so light. They are very small, but you're still getting the range of vision that you need with night vision. So, guys, Photonis Defense is becoming the forefront, the leader, and it is in the forefront of night vision right now. So if you're a dealer or you're in the law enforcement community, you need night vision, you need mil-spec night vision, or, of course, our military listeners out there, tell your command, hey, check out Photonis Defense. Or if you just you're a hunter and you want night vision to go hog hunt, a coyote hunt, which a lot of people do, you can't go any better than Photonis Defense. And they're run by veterans, guys that have been there and done that. And I put them on myself, used them. Just the size and the weight makes them better than what's out there. But then you add on all the little bells and whistles, the turn-off features, the turn-off features, the ability to maneuver them and get them on different angles on your head, which other night vision can't based off their mounts. Guys, they're second to none. So check out Photonis Defense, and if you want to learn more about them, check out what episode was it? 101? Was that Phil? 102?
Yes. Yep.
Phil talked about him in depth, but he's the guy that's part of that company, and he'll be able to tell you more, or hit them up on their webpage and ask your questions, and they'll get you some answers. But check out Photonis Defense, guys; they're the real deal.
Yeah, they're excellent, and I'm so honored that they're on board as a sponsor. I feel like it gives us some credibility. To really have like a cool night vision sponsor. I really take pride in who we have on board.
Me too.
If something seems corny and doesn't fit our audience, I don't want them on board as a sponsor. I want people that they're doing cool, innovative stuff. For lack of a better way of putting it. And they are innovative,
and they're making the operator out there, the veteran, they're making them stronger. They're giving them equipment so they can come home. That's what I love, is that this equipment is not just fun stuff. It's stuff that an operator, guy down range, or law enforcement, when you're clearing a house, is going to use. and it gives you the best opportunity for success, which that means it's the best opportunity for you to come home. And that is the most success. That's what I love these guys for. And you're right. Innovative is just, I mean, that's an easy way of explaining what Photonis Defense is, guys. But please check them out. And if your department needs them, your military unit needs them, go to Photonis Defense, contact them. Guys, you're not going to be disappointed with the quality. They're the best thing out there by far.
Yeah, we wouldn't stand behind them otherwise. So visit photonisdefense.com. That's PHOTONIS defense.com. Link is right there in the description for more information, or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer.
It's funny the things you think of. Just as the day that we were notified, the one thing that sticks out in my mind, I cannot tell you who the officers were who came. I can tell you what I was wearing, because we had come home from the state fireman's parade and it had been drizzling, and I had on blue jeans and they were soaking wet, because you're sitting there in a chair, even with an umbrella, it's dripping. And the first thing you want to do is get out of those wet blue jeans. And I grabbed the first thing I saw. I had a laundry basket that I hadn't taken upstairs, and there was a pair of red plaid flannel pajama bottoms. They were my husband's. I'm like, oh, but they'll be warm. I put them on. I had on an orange Auburn University t-shirt. And that was why my daughter went to the door and I didn't, because I said, I can't go to the door looking like this. And I'll hold the dog, because we had a dog that was lovely to family members, did not like strangers at all. And you talk about my daughter being strong. She turned around and said to me, Mom, I think this is for you. No expression on her face at all. I had no idea what I was walking into. And as I walked past the television, the scroll across the bottom of the TV said 2 New Jersey National Guard soldiers killed in Iraq. Now, it wasn't Ryan they were talking about. They were talking about Chris Duffy and Frank Carvel, who were killed on Friday. They didn't have the information yet on Ryan and Umberto. And I went to the door, and all I saw was the chaplain's cross. And I knew immediately that Ryan was dead. And I asked them to please tell me. I said, I know my son is dead. How did he die? And they couldn't tell me. They wouldn't tell me. They said, can we come in? Of course, they're standing outside in the rain. I, totally forgot to invite them in. And they wouldn't tell us until my husband could get home.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to locate them, because they were at the fireman's parade. And we had the dog out on our breezeway so that he wouldn't annoy anyone, because we had the 2 officers there. And when my son and my husband came home, the entire Mine Hill Fire Department came with them, because they knew something was wrong. And when they made the announcement, my husband did not handle it well, and they thought he was going to have a heart attack. That they called, the assistant chief went outside to call the first aid squad. And as he stepped out on the breezeway, he remembered Ann's words, don't go on the breezeway. And again, it's the funny things you remember. He turned around and the dog grabbed the seat of his pants.
Oh, no.
He said, I just made it back in with my life, because Aubie was tough.
Yeah.
And the squad came and he was fine. It was just the shock of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he had said to me before he left that he knew he wasn't coming home.
Ryan said that. I remember us talking about that. Yeah.
And he said he had always known that he was going to die young. And I just kind of, that's not going to happen. But he was right. And I saw a show last night. It was just a regular TV show about someone who had lost a child. And the mother had said, I felt like I would have known when she died. but I didn't. So I kept thinking that she was still alive. It was a child that was missing. And it reminded me, and I haven't told many people this, the morning that Ryan died, I was on my way to the bank and to make a deposit for the teachers union that I worked with. And I was going to the post office. And as I was driving to the bank, all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. I was choking. And I was coughing and I could not breathe. And I was about to pull off onto the side of the road and call for help when it went away completely.
Oh.
Later on, I would learn that was the time that Ryan died. And they said that he died within seconds from the blast and the fire. And I think that was him.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing. We didn't talk about that during the even during the breaks, or during the hour-long breaks that we had between scenes.
Well, and like I said, I really haven't told a lot of people that, because people look at you like you're kind of crazy.
No, I don't. You know that. I
Right.
Honestly, that's an amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Mom.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
That's
Well,
to me. That's a. I guess I know I'm not. I can't be in your shoes, but I see that as just something that is so positively amazing, that to say, hey, Mama, hey,
Well, and something else happened a couple of months later. And this is common with all Gold Star mothers, because I've talked to others. It seemed like whenever you were in the car, you would cry. It didn't matter if you were by yourself or with other people. You could be fine at home, but you got in the car and the tears started. And I was on my way to Home Depot with my husband, and we were stopped at a stoplight, and I'm looking off into the woods. And at that point, there were a lot of what if. What if I had been tougher on him? What if I had made him stay in the commissioning program? What if? And we're stopped at this light, and all of a sudden, I felt the weight of an arm around my shoulders, and it was warm. And I heard his voice in my ear say, "I'm okay, Mom. It's okay." I have never had a what if since then. I have never had a regret about anything since then.
That's awesome. That's and Ian, I know Ian's the same as I do. I believe in that. I believe wholeheartedly. I haven't felt the hand of a son, because he's still in high school here, but I know I felt the hand of God. I felt it, that God's out there and he's watching over us, and there's angels out there and obviously Ryan's one of them, and he's right there with you saying, "Mom, I'm okay." That's why you're so strong. That's why I admired your strength when I was talking to you, because I was going through hard times when we were doing the TV show, and your strength made me like, okay, I can suck it up. Jeez, Mama Doltz is kicking my ass on strength. I can be a little bit tougher than what I'm being. So,
well, I try.
Yeah, you do good. You do awesome.
Ryan said going to VMI was easier after living with me, because
I can see that. Yeah, but something tells me he earned a lot of those disciplinary actions. Can we say butt whippings, or can we not say that in today's society?
That he was, well, I have to say though, his brother was the one who would get him into trouble. Greg would come up with the ideas, Ryan would do it, and then Greg would stand back and go, "Wasn't me, it was him." Sort of like those commercials for Cheetos.
Yeah.
I didn't do something. Greg was the one who came up with the idea in the first place. And Anne would just shake her head and said, "I really didn't need two brothers." She did try to send Greg back when he was a baby. She told Santa Claus, "Take him back and give me a dog instead."
When you talk about the what ifs, though, it really just from the guys that I've interviewed doing this, you kind of realize that no matter what their path is in life, like this is what they want to do, which is why it's like such a crazy thing when you hear. Whenever we go into another war or anything like that, they'll often ask, senators and that type of thing. Would you send your kid to war? And I don't think it's as simple as air fingers quotes, sending your kid to war. Someone either wants to do this or they don't want to do this. And we don't have a draft or anything in this country anymore, so it's 100% voluntary. And it sounds like for him, this was his path. This was exactly what he wanted to do. Yeah. And there's probably nothing you could have said or nothing his brother could have said that would have stopped him going down that path. That is what he wanted. The only thing I could imagine is when he said to you, I'm not going to come back, I'm going to die young. I could only imagine if I said that to my mom, she would be furious for me to even talk that way. And I'm guessing for you, probably to hear that from your son, it's like, why are you saying that?
Well, I just said, oh, don't be silly. You're just nervous about going. Because I knew he wanted to go, but I could also tell from his demeanor that as the time got closer to go, he was getting nervous.
No, so fill people in. This was a second deployment, though, right? So the first one, remember we talked, it was great. This was another deployment. Right. That he was going with a different unit, wasn't he?
He was. He had transferred to New Jersey.
That's right.
And he didn't have to go because at that time, the National Guard members could not be deployed more. You had to have a space between deployments. And this would only be 6 months in between the two deployments. But he volunteered to go. When he transferred to New Jersey, they said, oh, we don't get deployed. We guard the bridges and the tunnels. 2 weeks later, they got the notice they were being deployed. And he told the commanding officer, he said, I will go so that someone who has a wife and children doesn't have to.
That's amazing.
And like the young man that he died with, Umberto wasn't supposed to have gone. I was told that he was called up to replace Ryan when Ryan was injured in training. But someone else said, no, he was replacing someone else. But whatever happened, Umberto was not supposed to have been there. He was supposed to have been home. His wife was regular Army in Korea, and they had a young son. But he was called up, and he died next to Ryan. Ryan was injured in training. He broke both of his heels. And they talk about that in the...
and War Heroes. We talk about that, yep.
He wasn't supposed to be eligible to go back till July. He convinced them in March that he was okay. And he left on Good Friday, I believe it was April 7th or 8th, to go to Iraq, and then died on June 5th.
Yeah.
And, he wanted to be with his unit. He did not want to wait and go with a different unit. He hadn't been with them that long, but he felt they knew what they were doing. He liked them. They were from Jersey. He knew them well. And if he had waited till July, they might have put him with from wherever that may not have been trained as well. And he really, even though he had only known them a short time, he had become very close to some of them. In fact, Frank Carvel was teaching him to play the bagpipes because he wanted to learn the bagpipes. And Frank was the member of the unit who could do that. But he was doing what he wanted to do. And we're very proud of him for that. But when there were no more what ifs, I decided that we had to start a foundation in his memory. And not thinking, I chose the Sergeant Ryan Doltz Memorial Foundation. That takes a long time to have to write out when you're writing. My daughter said, you couldn't have gone with something shorter, like the website she set up is rememberingryan.org. So that's a lot easier. But it just seemed like the proper name for him. And we give scholarships every year. We give them to local high school seniors. We give them to members or dependents of the New Jersey National Guard, and also to a cadet at VMI who is a member of band company, as Ryan was. Colonel Brody, who is the regimental band commander, is the one who chooses the winner. And he's done a great job of doing that. And, this is our way of keeping his memory alive. We if we hear of someone from the National Guard or even regular military who they need something, we try to help out. The wife of one of Ryan's friends, her husband was training to be a helicopter pilot. So he was at Fort Rucker. She was in Texas, and someone stole their lawnmower. So we sent them the money for a new lawnmower. Little things like that. Wherever we can help out, we make something they call comfort pillows that we give to the Marine Corps League, and they take them to Walter Reed and to the veterans hospitals. It's a pillow shaped much like a bone. It was originally designed for breast cancer patients, but it works perfectly for amputees to put under their arm or their leg so that it's a cushion to make it a little bit more comfortable. They also just give them to the veterans as a thank you. You know, it's something you can use as a pillow in a car or on a plane, whatever. We work with the retired teachers and another group called College Club, and we make these pillows. And like I said, we give them to the Marine Corps League, and they distribute them for us. But it's just our way of helping.
And you've got, I don't think we were recording when we were talking about it. Me and you were just chatting about it. The axe, because you always do. I think it's annually. We used to do the tricky trays, which I had no idea what a tricky tray was, guys. You guys in the East Coast, you can make fun of me all you want. We don't do.
I would have no idea. That's how.
But you do like a fundraiser, and are you still doing annually, or did the Rona screw all that up?
Well, no. Well, it did it messed things up a lot. But we decided we used to do tricky trays, and they were huge. But we decided to. I'm getting older, and it was tiring me out. But what we are doing this year is something called a Kick Axe fundraiser. It's going to be on October 10th, Sunday afternoon. At Stumpy's Hatchet House in Fairfield, New Jersey, where you can throw axes at a target. You can drink beer or wine coolers and have snacks of all sorts. And then the money will go towards Ryan's scholarship that we give each year.
Yeah, I was looking at, before Chris came on, I was looking at my calendar. I'm going to be at the Adirondacks with some friends, but otherwise I would absolutely be there. But I was going to say that's where the show really leaves off is at the annual event, the annual fundraiser, which I erroneously realized I said in the intro June 4th. And I assume you have the correct date. So June 5th, I should correct myself, is when we lost Ryan. But yeah, that's where the show leaves off, is at that fundraiser. We can get into that a little bit, but I wanted to ask you, like, once the show was finally done, and I know you saw it way before it aired, because as Chris said, it was years ago. You were at the premiere in New Jersey. Another thing I should have been at, I couldn't go for some reason. I don't remember what, but when you finally saw it on the big screen at that premiere, I mean, after hours upon hours of filming, and as you said earlier, having to film everything a million times, what did you think of the final product? Did you think it was well done? And I'll say this, I got some feedback from listeners, and some people they said it was so sad I had to turn it off. I mean, to me, I felt like it was a good balance of the fun times, like that commercial, which I remembered after seeing it, and and the sad as well. I didn't think it was all sad. I want to hear what you thought, though.
No, I thought it was perfect. The premiere was not in New Jersey; it was in Las Vegas.
We did the Vegas. Yeah, that's right. That was the first one. Yeah, that's
there was
right.
one in Jersey, though, right?
We did. Yeah, we did the New Jersey one. Was a few months after. No, there was two. There was a soft premiere in Vegas, and then the big premiere was Jersey. I remember. Yeah,
I thought they did a wonderful job, and I think because so few people in this country, I've heard it's less than 0.5% of the people in this country are directly connected to someone in the military. They don't understand what it's like. Even during peacetime, if we ever see that again, it's different. You have a different feeling about everything. And if you have no connection, there's a war going on, but it doesn't affect me. No one from my family is there. So, it's in the paper, and there's a line that says 2 soldiers were killed in a helicopter crash. Oh, okay, too bad. And you go on. But if you're in the military or have a connection to the military, it's different. Now, going back to Vietnam, everyone had a connection some way because there was a draft. But once the draft was over, it was very, very different. And people don't realize just how traumatic it can be. But you also have to realize that you can take a horrible thing that happens and turn it into something positive.
Yeah.
And that's what we did with Ryan's foundation. I truly believe that if we hadn't done the foundation, I wouldn't get out of bed I would just stay in bed, that I would not have a reason to get up. And that happens to so many families that they can't get beyond the death of their loved one. And, they just relive it day after day. And I can't do that. I have to make something positive out of it.
Well,
My daughter teases me. She goes, you're always planning something for the future. I say, because you have to have something to look forward to. Especially when you get to be my age, you cannot. I have less years ahead of me than I have behind me. So I intend to make the most of them.
Right,
and this virus has messed that up a lot.
Yeah.
And people should all live like that. So you always have something positive to look forward to. Always move. We always say move forward, and you amplify. You exemplify that. Amplify it even is even a better word. You do, because even and with the media and so forth, the media who we talked about war heroes really did you wrong. And I have no love for the media. You know that. I can't stand it. But how you handled them, where I probably would have went and beat the living shit out of the reporter. But you're like, and you treated him, you almost scolded him like a mom or a teacher would. But it still came out as not something negative. It was more of a positive, like, hey, learn from this. Don't ever do it again.
Absolutely.
And that was amazing to me, because especially at that time I've let the media go. I still don't have any love for them. I don't do the media anymore. Very rarely, if I ever. At that time, it was so much hatred for them. I had to hate something. I did. You didn't show much, but after talking to you, it was man. She let go of something that was, I think, 10 times worse of how they betrayed her and her family, and she didn't go postal literally, which I would have never. I'm not condoning that, but I would never. I wouldn't have said that.
I used to tell my students, you don't ever want to incur the wrath of Mrs. Doltz.
Yeah.
And if I would get upset with a child, they'd say, "Was that the wrath?" I'm like, "Oh no." When the wrath appears, you'll hear it all the way down the hall. And my own children would say they could tell when I had reached a certain point, because my voice would go up about 3 octaves higher. And then they knew they were really in trouble. But when you were talking about the media, you were talking about Newsweek.
Yeah. Newsweek, which
is funny, because not to be confused with Newsmax, who aired it. It sounds very similar.
And at that time, there really wasn't a lot of checks and balances on the media. There wasn't during that. They could report whatever they wanted, and they usually did without letting family members know, hey, we're going to throw a picture or something, instead of asking for permission, which I think now they do more than they used to. But that time it was rampant. They were terrible.
And my son took my reaction differently. I was not upset. I was upset that they were trying to hide it from me, because I knew something was going on, because there was too much whispering and, darting here and there and not saying anything when I got near them. And so I heard the word Newsweek. So I had gone looking for them myself, and they were all gone out of the.
We talked about watch War Heroes, guys. We talked about this all. We're just giving you a synopsis of what happened.
Sure.
But I was not upset. I was upset that they didn't warn us.
Sure. And for those who haven't seen it, meaning a photo of your son in there.
Yes, and of his unit and of the vehicle that he had been in, covered in blood. And when I saw them, I was actually relieved, because what you imagine is 10 times worse, because the Army gives you very little information, very little. And it's a bomb. Well, the bomb wasn't directly under them. They were passing another car. It was the other car that blew up, and they had the blast injuries from the explosion that was next to them.
Sure.
And the photographer gave me more information on the whole thing than anyone else did. And when I wrote to Newsweek, they contacted me. They were very gracious. They apologized. I said, I'm not mad. I want the world to know what happens to the soldiers. But you need to let the families know.
But let's do it the right way. And you're right. And that was
obviously Ryan. As soon as you saw it, you knew it was Ryan. You could see his face. And I met with the photographer in Washington. He brought me a disc of not all the photos he took, because there were blanks. And my friend who was with me said to him, is this okay for her to see? And he said, I made sure that it was. So I know he took out things that he thought would be difficult for me to look at. But again, knowing what happened is better than imagining what happened.
Because your brain will just go over and amp and make it worse. And you used it, and I use it today. After I've used it throughout, even my little social media posts and things, negative, I try to turn that into a teaching point now. And honestly, I got that really. My mother was a teacher, so I got that from her bringing up, whether I wanted to or not. It was ingrained in me. But where it started to come out is after I talked to you. I was like, okay, this is no more anger. Let's use this as a way to teach people how to be better, how to be leaders, how to overcome adversity.
Absolutely.
And that was, hey, Mama Doltz, that's on you. That's where I turned the corner, was after we did our show.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was going to ask you something, Chris, after I watched the actual show. I was kind of putting the timeline together in my head of when it was shot and probably when I saw you last before then, and then the last time I saw you, after then, and how the show ends with the fundraiser and you can't be there and you're in your car filming a video.
I was deployed. I was actually doing it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where you say, I'm sorry I can't be here. I'm going to give this donation. I was asked to be back overseas. So I was actually curious, was that your last deployment or one of your last deployments?
That was where I was turning the corner, but I had reached my breaking point for all the crap that was going on. And that's when I nuked all my social media. That's when I just screw this. I'm going to South America doing an anti-kidnapping contract. I am tired of all this. I'm tired of the media. I'm tired of my social media. I'm tired of my life. If I don't come back, great. I want to, but hey, screw it. And I couldn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan because I lost all my security clearances. So yeah, that was that time. That's when the implosion happened, and I came back home from South America, and it was
the final one.
That was the last one I did. I was gone another Halloween because it was right around Halloween. We did it, and I did. And I remember looking at a picture of my 3-year-old. He was 3 at the time, and he was going out to do trick or treating. And I was thinking of honestly, all this was going through my head, thinking of the war heroes, talking to Mama Doltz and what she said and her strength, and me going, okay, you've imploded, you've got everything done. You basically hit a reset button. And that's how I did my reset button. I went to work. I got out. I got back into something I like to do, which was contracting, military contracting, security contracting. But I was looking at my 3-year-old boy's picture, thinking of family members, thinking as me, Mama Doltz and Gold Star family members. And I'm like, why the hell am I gone again? Why am I missing another Halloween? And when I got home, though, it was a great reset. I felt terrible missing I did. But I had to go. I was like, I had to get out of here. I had to leave and go. And it was an opportunity that I could go basically go be a contractor again, enjoy what I used to do. And South America, to me, my Spanish comes back in about 30 days. So it's it felt like home, but still doing a contract that I would do in between GRS contracts. I used to do anti-kidnapping contracts in South and Central America quite often. So yeah, but that was the turning point. The war heroes, if we ever go back to where did Tano really almost implode and never come back. It was then, but it was after talking to Mama Doltz. It was like, okay, I got to get my shit together. How do I do this?
Were you in like a weird phase? Because the thing is, I mean, I know you're saying that you were, but what I'm wondering is you filmed that, which was a big production, and then you went back overseas. Were you in your head saying like, hey, do I want to be a media personality and maybe do this full time, or do I want to go back to contracting?
Yeah.
Was it like a kind of struggle within?
Yeah, it was. Do I want to? And then when I was there, it was okay. I don't want to contract anymore because I was missing another Halloween. I don't want to be the media person that I was, which was the divisive guy. It's Hillary sucks, Obama sucks. Being that guy, it was okay. Let's do it on my terms. Let's build it back, and that's again. But this where it all started. It all started where the little brick came out of that dam, which was a good thing. At the War Heroes, when we were doing this, we were doing the filming, and Mama Doltz and I are sitting on the couch, and she's on her chair, and I'm sitting on that love seat, and we're talking. And in my head, as we're talking, I'm looking at her going, all right, this woman is teaching me a lot right now about how to be strong. I am not being strong. I'm being a complete divisive asshole, really not doing any good for people right now. I got to get out of here and go figure this out. And that's when it was like, God, I didn't even know I had a contract. I got back home and all of a sudden I get a call on the phone. Hey, you want to go to South America? We got to end a kidnapping. A guy I used to work with at GRS was working privately for a company in Texas. He goes, you want to go to South America and run around and try to catch guys that are kidnapping Americans? There's like, sure, what the hell? But fine. All right, let's go. And it just all worked out that way. So yeah, I know we're taking over a lot of your time, Miss Doltz, but
no, but it's all part of it's all part of the show. I mean, that's where it ended, and so I think people probably had questions, and actually, people just seeing it on Newsmax now who don't know any better, and you know, you can't blame them. People just turn on the TV and they see it. They must be like, oh, Chris Peranto is still a contractor. That's what I would think, because we don't know how long ago that was filmed.
That was my last one, because I don't want to miss another Halloween. I don't want to miss another birthday. I don't want to miss another, and I don't need it. When I was overseas doing that, I was just some contractors continue to go over when they get older because they still want to feel kind of cool. That's part of the thing too. And I was like, man, I got nothing else to prove. What am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, you know, the other question I wanted to ask you, you know, and unless there's anything else before we wrap up, when I booked you, and you said I could call you Cheryl, I feel crazy not thinking Mr. Doltz, but when I booked you, Cheryl, and I spoke to you on the phone, you said, you know, this was right after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and you gave me your feelings on that. And people may want to hear your feelings as someone who did lose a son, because I know that the family members of those Marines, Navy corpsmen, they're feeling probably the same way you felt on that day in 2004.
I'd love to hear what your feelings are too, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, Mama Doltz, if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate it as well.
Everyone who's been around me has heard my feelings. I think our government screwed up big time. That you do not tell the bad guys when you're leaving. In World War II, it was loose lips, sink ships. Well, loose lips telling Afghanistan, we're pulling out on such and such a day. Get your people out first. Then tell them you're leaving. But get the civilians out. Don't leave them there and have to them try to figure out how they're going to get out. Don't believe the Taliban. They're lying to you. They are not going to treat the women like human beings. They are property to them.
And what did they just already do? No secondary education for women now. Do you have to? I mean, I swear, people in D.C. are dumber than a bag of hammers. Literally, it's just ridiculous.
You know, like, we believe politicians when they campaign and they're going to do this and they're going to do that for you. And they're not, because once they're elected, they're going to do whatever they please. And it irritates me. And I was just talking with someone this morning whose son was a Marine. There needs to be no parties. We need to get rid of Republicans and Democrats and just have Americans.
I would love that, yeah.
They have to go out and they have to campaign in person and nothing on television or social media. No campaigning. I'm so sick. They start a year ahead of time campaigning for mayor of New York City. I get so tired of those commercials. Thank God for being able to, tape anymore, but whatever you do, when you save the show, you fast forward through those commercials.
Is it still TiVo? Or is that old? Is TiVo? Is that old?
DVR.
DVR. Okay, DVR.
That I can't stand watching commercials that are wasting my time, because I know that whatever they're telling you, they're not going to be able to do.
I'll say it's horse shit. I'll just say it for you. You don't have to cuss. I'll cuss for it.
That there are very few politicians that I trust. I think they have messed up. I do not think our administration listened to the military, because the military was said you can't just do that without getting our people out, making it safe for them. You were talking about Hillary Clinton before. After Benghazi, most Gold Star mothers referred to her as Killary, not Hillary.
But she was all for women, though. Remember that? That's what my mom would tell me. Remember that? She was all for women, and she was. What about me? And my mom would say that. What about me? Am I not a woman?
And she fell on her sword afterwards. She resigned, and rightly so, because she caused the death of 4 Americans and injuries to others, and put your life and so many other lives in danger. And President Obama was just as much at fault, because I'm sure
he's the commander in chief. People forget about that. He's the one that's in charge, and he kind of got out of there scot-free. Not really, but he's mainly responsible. That's the guy that was in charge of them.
And I do not personally feel that during wartime you should ever have a commander in chief who has not served in the military, because they don't understand. And they don't listen. They're there because they are now powerful and they are getting rich. And they don't understand what the military goes through and what anyone in the military goes through, or the families. And they can say they do. And I know the White House had a beautiful Christmas tree devoted to the military. That doesn't help the families at all. Pay them better, number one, so that they're not struggling to get by, but they have to do more for them, and start by not making stupid mistakes like they did in Afghanistan.
They're not
bad.
It really is. They're not tacticians, even though they claim to be smarter than Joe Private Snuffy on the ground. As far as they aren't, they're not. Unless you've been it, you've led troops. You've been led by tremendous leaders. You know tactics. You know techniques. You've read every damn manual out there, which you have to read when you're in the military. Every damn training manual, field manual. Then you've applied it, and you don't know. And if you're not willing to listen to people that have done it, you shouldn't be in charge, or should just step away.
And to have been in battle and lose friends, they don't understand what happens.
The sacrifice. They have no idea what sacrifice is. No clue.
And when I was talking to this person this morning, we were talking about former Congressman Rodney Frelinghuysen. He was truly not a politician. He was a statesman, because he thought of the state of New Jersey first before he thought about anything else. And he went out of his way to help veterans, to help military families. When Ryan died, I said we wanted him buried at Arlington. They told us it would be 3 to 6 weeks before he could be buried. And when he got wind of that, he called and said, no, combat deaths go ahead of World War II. And so we then got a call, and it was in 3 days or 4 days.
Wow.
Or 5 days, something like that, that they were making the combat deaths wait till after those from World War II who had died. He said, they're older, they can wait. Take the combat deaths first. And when a young man who was a captain in the Marines wanted to escort Ryan's body home, the Army said no. He's not a relative, and he's not in the Army. He can't do it. And Congressman Frelinghuysen made some calls, and our Keiko said to me, all you have to do is sign on this paper that Donnie Hasseltine is a VMI brother, and he can escort him home. And he did.
Wow.
And he, at that time, he was assigned to a 2-star Marine general in Washington. And so he met the plane, and they wouldn't allow us to meet the plane at Dover because I wanted to go.
Why not?
They did not want families going. We were told it was not allowed.
Huh.
I think it was they didn't want to see how many bodies were coming home. Because this was in 2004, and there were a lot of deaths. It was it was a very rough time.
Yeah.
So, being a rule follower, I said, fine. I found out that other families went anyway. Now they have a Fisher House there where you can stay and wait, and you're welcome to be there.
That's.
I really, I would very much like to have done that, but we weren't able.
Well, that's
and, so Donnie and Michael Scorsese, who was Ryan's roommate in Iraq, and the New Jersey State Police brought him home. And the then governor said, I understand he likes to drive fast. I said, are you checking his driving record? Because he had a lot of speeding. He said he instructed the state police to do 85 miles an hour the whole way. And they made it from the Jersey-Delaware border in record time, to Randolph. And we heard them coming from a distance with lights and sirens and everything. They turned them off shortly before they got to the funeral home, but
sure.
Ryan would have loved that. He would have thought that was the greatest thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
He did like to drive fast. Made us all nervous. And that's why they often made him the lead vehicle, because he didn't stop for anything. One fellow from his unit said, I had to repair the mirrors on those cars so many times in those vehicles, because it didn't matter if the space was narrow. He went through it. He made his way through.
Well, you didn't want to stop. When you stopped, you were a target.
Exactly.
Stopping and being in a position for more than 30 seconds made everybody nervous. Whenever I remember those vividly. Actually, now talking about it, like, God, we're sitting 15 seconds. We're sitting here too long. We got to move, guys. We got to move. That was those days. Those days, it was crazy like that. It was.
They said that when the gate opened,
it
was doing 60 miles an hour right through those narrow streets, and he would blow the horn, and if something was in the way and it didn't move, he went right over the top of it. But he didn't stop, because they said exactly that you're a target if you stop.
You're and then because they were doing just even grenades under the cars, just toss them under the car.
Coming home from a mission, they're within less than a mile of the base, and it's an IED.
Yeah, they got smart with their tactics. They did. I mean, they knew you can only vary routes so much, but when you're coming home, there's only a couple choke points that you can go. And I mean, that's what we would do. And it sucked. And they were getting good with their IEDs and VBIDs. They were
This is something that the photographer told me, because he had been all over Bosnia and that area. He was a photojournalist. That's all he'd ever wanted to do. That this wasn't the typical IED. This was something like you would see in Bosnia. It was a much more advanced, bigger. He said to him, it was almost like 2 artillery shells.
Yeah, it probably was.
Because they were just a short distance away. He was embedded with 1st Cavalry. And at that point, you were still having to get permission to go and help. And when the Mayday was sounded, the lieutenant said to him, screw it, we're going.
Yeah.
So they were there within seconds. And so he told us about the vehicle. there was also someone hiding in the bushes, maybe the person who set off the IED, but he was captured. And he said they took him away. His feet didn't touch the ground. That they took him off. But he said it was the biggest explosion he had ever seen of all of the things going on there at that time. Enough that it flipped this armored vehicle several times and ended up going in the opposite direction.
They were, I remember them getting and daisy chaining artillery shells and rockets and lumping them together. And
but again, I have to say Ryan was doing what he wanted to do. And he had sent me a message a week or so before that. He said, I'm not driving a Humvee anymore. You don't have to worry. I'm in an armored vehicle. Well, and I truly believe that when it's your time, it is your time. You're not going to go out of your way to try to do things to speed it up. However, when it's time for you to leave this earth, it's going to happen no matter where you are.
That's why you don't live in fear. You just live. You just live. I think a lot of people need to hear that more than ever now. I never lived in fear. I never lived in fear overseas. I don't live in fear here. I just live. And you can enjoy life so much more if you just live. Just live and don't worry.
And I keep telling my grandchildren, I'm old, but I intend to be around when you graduate from high school, when you graduate from college, when you get married. I want to see my great-grandchildren. And Addie looked at me and she goes, "You're elderly now." Like, that's right. But I will still be here.
Grandma, and still be out drinking wine coolers and throwing sharp axes. That's what we're doing.
Well, this was awesome, and it really is a privilege and an honor that you came on here and shared these stories, because I think for a lot of these families, they don't want to share these stories, and rightfully so. It's their right to say, I don't want to talk about this. And so it means a lot that you're able to come on here and do that. So once again, Cheryl Doltz, you can check out warheroestv.com, at warheroestv on Twitter and Instagram. And then for Sergeant Ryan Doltz, the Sergeant Ryan Doltz Memorial Foundation, which is on Facebook, and rememberingryan.org. The fundraiser, once again, is October 10th at the Kick Axe fundraiser at Stumpy's Hatchet House in Fairfield, New Jersey. 3 to 5 p.m., $35. And you just got to RSVP right on the site on rememberingryan.org is the best place?
Probably. There is a form to fill out that you can send in. And it goes to my daughter because she keeps track of all.
She wants to make sure there's no axe murderers coming to the axe event. Don't.
No. If they pay their $35, they're welcome to come.
So if there's any listeners that are in the New Jersey area, definitely come check it out. But that's awesome, and I really appreciate you giving us this time, and it's been an honor having you on.
Thanks, Mama.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anytime I can talk about Ryan, I love it.
We'll get you, and we'll get you back on again. Because you're such a good talker, and you're willing to tell stories, and you're really you're engaging, and that's
I agree.
And I think a lot of Gold Star families will take that. For maybe they need to be more like Mama Doltz, more just get out there and talk a little bit. Maybe that will help. And obviously it's made you, and you help guys like me that we think we're badasses when we realize, wait a second, we're really not as tough as we think we are. I think we can be a little tougher. So keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. And you helped me personally. That time frame, I was going through a really hard time. I didn't show it a whole bunch, but I was, and it was a turning point for me. I mean,
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, if I ever had a problem, you're the first one I'm going to call.
I'm coming. Coming. Oh, yeah. Especially the East Coast. I don't have a problem coming down there. Tell Greg and Ann hi for me, please.
I will, definitely.
Thank you, man.
Awesome. Yeah, and for our listeners, as always, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Check out our great sponsors who keep us going. And TontosGearLocker.com for all the latest of where you'll be and all that great stuff. Thanks, guys, as always.
That's all for this episode of the Battleline podcast. but we'll be back on Monday with more American Straight Talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. To sign up for future Battleline tactical courses, go to www.christantoperanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.